Everyone on the floor now. Greater than the gunman's voice cut through the hospital ward just after 2 a.m. Patients screamed. Nurses hit the ground. Monitors blared. But one person didn't move. A rookie nurse stood between the gunman and the patients. Blonde hair pulled back. Scrubs wrinkled from a double shift. Name badge reading Ava. She didn't panic, didn't beg, didn't even raise her voice. The gunman stepped closer. Then it happened. The moment he adjusted his grip, Ava saw it, not as a threat but as an opening. She moved, not fast, precise. 5 seconds later, the gun was on the floor. The gunman was face down, and the ward went silent. Security rushed in. Doctors froze. Nobody could process what they just witnessed because whatever Ava just used, no nursing program teaches that. And when the chief finally asked, "Who are you?" her answer didn't just shock the room. It shattered everything they thought they knew about her. Stay with this because nobody knew the rookie nurse was a Navy SEAL and her past was buried for a reason. Before we start, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and hit subscribe. It signals the algorithm you're here for stories about heroes who hide in plain sight. The night shift at St. Gabriel Medical Center was meant to be uneventful. It always was. By 1:42 a.m., the hospital had slipped into that eerie humming stillness that only exists in the dead hours. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Machines breathed for patients who couldn't do it themselves. The air hung thick with antiseptic and stale coffee. Nurses drifted through hallways on autopilot, their footsteps measured, routine, exhausted, and somewhere among them was Ava. She blended in. That was intentional. Early 30s. Blonde hair scraped into a tight practical bun, pale blue scrubs, a rookie badge clipped to her chest, edges already frayed from 2 months of constant checks by supervisors. To the rest of the staff, she was just another fresh hire, composed, capable, maybe unnervingly calm for someone this new. Tonight, she worked pediatrics, a wing filled with sleeping children, lights dimmed low, cartoon stickers curling off the walls. Ava moved methodically from room to room, adjusting IVs, monitoring vitals, murmuring soft reassurances to half-asleep parents folded into uncomfortable chairs. She never hurried, never lingered too long, but she absorbed everything. The hiss of automatic doors opening at the corridor's far end, the absence of radio chatter from the night security guard, the echo of footsteps that shouldn't be there. Ava stopped outside room 317, her hands settling lightly against the door frame. Inside, a 6-year-old boy slept beneath a dinosaur blanket, his chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. She glanced down the hallway, her eyes narrowing almost imperceptibly. Someone was moving with the wrong energy, not running, not sneaking, deliberate. Her posture shifted without conscious thought. At the nurse's station, 2 colleagues traded complaints in hushed tones. Double shifts, broken vending machines, the usual grind. Ava started to speak to ask if security had done their rounds, but the words caught in her throat because the shouting erupted. Everyone on the floor. The command tore through the pediatric wing like a violent intrusion. Ava didn't react, not visibly, but something deep in her chest contracted. Sharp, instinctive, familiar. Parents shrieked. A nurse sent a clipboard clattering. Shoes skidded as people scrambled backward. At the hallway's end, a man materialized, tall, wild-eyed, hoodie drenched from rain, gripping a handgun with both trembling hands. The barrel swung erratically from door to door. On the floor now, 2 nurses collapsed immediately. A father yanked his wife down, covering her body with his own. An alarm chirped somewhere in the distance, but not the lockdown system. That hadn't been activated yet. Ava remained upright, not out of courage, out of assessment, distance, angles, cover. His finger positioned too deep in the trigger guard. His elbows locked rigid, inexperienced, untrained. The man's breathing came ragged and fast. His pupils were blown wide with adrenaline. He was terrified, which made him lethal. "You." The gunman snapped, fixing on Ava. "Get down." Slowly, Ava lifted her hands, not overhead in surrender, just enough to appear cooperative. She took one deliberate step forward instead of back, subtly positioning herself between him and the patient rooms. "I'm a nurse," she said, her voice level, measured. "You don't want to do this here." Her tone didn't antagonize. It anchored. For a heartbeat, the man wavered. People don't expect composure in moments like this. Panic breeds panic. Ava refused to give him that ammunition. "I just need to find my brother," he stammered. "They said he's here." Nobody will tell me where. Ava nodded slowly, purposefully. All right, we can work that out, but you need to lower the weapon. Behind her, a door creaked, a pediatric resident peering out, eyes glazed with terror. Ava didn't turn around. She didn't need to. Please, she continued. There are children on this floor. That word landed hard, his jaw clenched, the gun dipped slightly, then snapped back up. Nobody moves. He yelled, voice climbing into hysteria. Nobody. Time became fragile, stretched impossibly thin. Still no security, no police response, no lockdown protocol. Ava felt that absence-like weight settling on her shoulders. This fell to her. The man advanced another step. His sneakers squeaked against the waxed floor. The gun's muzzle trembled, tracking from her chest to her face. She noticed his grip tightening. Wrong. Overcorrecting. His thumb shifted position. And in that split second, something inside Ava went absolutely still. Not fear, precision. The hallway noise receded. The screaming parents dissolved into white noise. Nothing existed except his hands, the weapon, the shrinking space between them. She'd been here before, not in this hospital, somewhere hotter, louder, soaked in blood. The gunman adjusted his hold. Ava registered it, not as danger, but as opportunity, and she struck. That's when everything fractured. Ava erased the distance in 2 fluid strides. Not frantic, not clumsy, surgical. Her left hand connected first, not with the gun, but the wrist, snapping it inward at an angle joints aren't designed to handle. The man gasped, shock eclipsing pain, and that fraction of a second was all she required. Ava pivoted, shoulder pressed to his chest, her forearm threading under his elbow as she torque-uked. The gun discharged. The blast ripped through the pediatric wing like a thunderclap, loud enough to rattle fixtures and trigger fresh screams from terrified children. The round punched into the ceiling, raining plaster and dust across the hallway. Before the sound even faded, the weapon was gone from his grip. Ava wrenched it free, drove his knee backward, and slammed him face first into the floor. Her knee landed precisely between his shoulder blades, crushing. His breath exploded out in a helpless wheeze as she cranked his arm behind his back and locked it. 4 seconds. That's all it took. Silence crashed down so suddenly it felt surreal. The man lay stunned, cheek flattened against linoleum, disarmed, spine immobilized under pressure he couldn't escape. Ava kept her knee planted, weight distributed, breathing controlled. Her hands never wavered. Don't move, she said quietly, not threatening, not celebrating. Absolute. For a frozen moment, no one moved. Then reality flooded back. Parents wailed. Nurses sobbed. Someone screamed for security. A child's hysterical crying echoed from behind a closed door. Heavy footsteps pounded as guards finally stormed the wing. Radios crackling, weapons raised. They stopped dead when they saw it. The gunman neutralized, the weapon discarded, and a rookie nurse, badge still visible on her scrubs, pinning him like she'd trained for it her entire life. Jesus Christ, one guard breathed. Cuff him, Ava ordered without shifting her gaze. He's disarmed but unstable. Take your time. The nearest guard hesitated just briefly before complying. When the cuffs clicked shut, Ava rose smoothly and stepped clear, kicking the gun farther down the hall with her heel. She didn't glance at it again. Only then did her hands begin to shake. She clenched them tight, forcing the tremor down. She'd learned the technique years ago. Ride it out. Don't let them witness it. A pediatric resident stumbled toward her, eyes wide with disbelief. How did you? Ava cut her off. Check the rooms. Some kids will need comfort. One might need sedation if the gunshot traumatized them. Her voice sliced through the chaos, steady and commanding enough to snap people back into action. Doctors mobilized, nurses scattered, parents were guided into rooms. Order reassembled itself piece by piece, but the stares persisted. People watched Ava like she'd materialized from another dimension entirely. Security confirmed the all clear over radio. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Administrators descended on the ward. Suits wrinkled, faces drained of color, and Ava felt it. That familiar sinking sensation in her gut. She'd crossed a threshold. Not legally, not ethically, but personally. She'd survived by remaining invisible, by being competent, quiet, unmemorable. Tonight she'd done something impossible to forget. A hospital administrator approached, flanked by 2 officers. Nurse Ava, correct. Well, need your statement. Ava nodded once. Of course. The officer studied her carefully. Ma'am, I have to ask. Do you have prior tactical or weapons training? Ava held his gaze steadily. I've had training. What kind? The hallway seemed to hold its breath. Sufficient, she answered. The officer frowned, clearly unsatisfied. But before he could push further, a voice cut in from behind. Dr. Mark Ellison, head of pediatrics, a man infamous for his temper and rigid adherence to procedure. Why? He demanded coldly. Was a nurse confronting an armed intruder instead of following lockdown protocol? The accusation hung in the air. Ava turned to face him slowly because lockdown was never initiated, because security didn't respond. Because he was seconds from entering a patient room. Ellison started to interrupt. And because, she continued, her voice dropping just enough to command attention. If I hadn't acted when I did, someone would be dead right now. That silenced him completely. Ellison stared, then looked away, jaw working. Police escorted the gunman past, still disoriented, still trembling. As he passed Ava, he looked at her with unmistakable fear and something else. Recognition. Like he'd finally grasped how catastrophically he'd miscalculated. As the corridor emptied, Ava sagged against the wall. Exhaustion slamming into her all at once. 8 hours into a 12-hour shift. Adrenaline evaporating, memories pressing closer than she wanted. She sensed someone beside her. Dr. Lena Morales, a veteran nurse who'd worked the hospital for over 2 decades, studied Ava with knowing eyes, not shock, not reverence, understanding. I've seen that before, Morales said softly. Ava stayed silent. Combat medics, Morales continued. They move like that, controlled until it's finished. Then reality catches up. Ava closed her eyes briefly. Please don't. Morales nodded. Your secret for now. For now. Those 2 words haunted Ava through the remainder of her shift. By morning, the story had metastasized. Not through official channels, not yet. But hospitals operate on their own grapevine. Whispers traveled faster than policy memos. A nurse disarmed a gunman. Not just any nurse. The rookie. When Ava clocked out at 7:04 a.m., 2 men were waiting near the staff exit. They weren't hospital security. They wore civilian clothes. Dark jackets, identical bearing, military bearing. Her stomach dropped. One offered a faint smile. Ava Collins. She froze mid-stride. Yes, we need to talk, he said unofficially. Ava scanned her surroundings. Cameras, staff. Too many witnesses. Not here, she said. Agreed. They walked together into the early morning light, the hospital looming behind them like a monument that wouldn't forget. The man spoke again. We monitor certain irregularities tonight, triggered an alert. Ava exhaled slowly. You shouldn't even have my name. The second man finally spoke. We keep track of names that aren't supposed to exist anymore. They stopped beside a black SUV. Your unit, the first man said carefully, was officially declared Kia during Operation Black Haven. Ava's blood turned to ice. No survivors on record, he continued. Yet here you are alive working pediatrics. Ava said nothing. Command wants to know, the second man added, whether tonight was an isolated incident or if you're still what you used to be. Ava looked back toward the hospital, toward the windows where children slept safely again. I never stopped being who I was, she said quietly. I just chose a different war. The men exchanged a weighted glance. That, the first said, might be a problem. And as the SUV door swung open, Ava understood something she'd spent years trying to escape. Her past hadn't stumbled onto her. It had been tracking her all along. Before we continue, drop a comment below and remember this. Never judge someone by the uniform they wear because you never know what they survived to earn the right to wear it. The SUV didn't take Ava far. It didn't have to. They drove without speaking for barely 5 minutes before pulling into a deserted underground parking structure 2 blocks from the hospital. Concrete pillars, flickering lights, the kind of space deliberately designed to be unmemorable. The engine died. Neither man moved immediately. Finally, the passenger broke the silence. We're not here to arrest you, Ava kept her eyes forward. That's not reassuring. He offered a thin smile. We're here to assess a liability. That captured her attention. She turned. A liability to whom? To everyone, the driver said evenly. Including yourself. They exited the vehicle. The garage reeked of motor oil and damp concrete. Somewhere overhead, a train rattled past. Ordinary life, completely unaware. The passenger leaned casually against the SUV. You were officially declared dead 7 years ago, Ava. Your unit, your commanding officer, everything sealed under a black classification that even most admirals can't access. I'm aware, Ava said. I signed the documentation. And yet, he continued, tonight, you neutralized an armed hostile using close-quarters techniques taught exclusively to Tier 1 operators. Ava crossed her arms. I stopped someone from harming children. No argument there, the driver interjected. But you did it in full view. Ava laughed once, sharp, bitter. You think I planned that? Silence expanded between them. Then the passenger asked quietly, do you realize how many analysts flagged the footage within 10 minutes? Her jaw tightened. There were cameras. Always are, he replied. Haas rank among the most surveilled structures in the country. Ava closed her eyes. She replayed it. The gunman's grip. Adjusting, the angle of his wrist, the vulnerability no civilian would ever recognize. She hadn't deliberated. She'd simply reacted like she always had. The driver pressed on. There are people who've spent years trying to prove Operation Black Haven didn't conclude the way official reports claim. Ava's voice went cold. It ended with my team dead. On paper, he corrected gently, her fists clenched. You weren't there. No, the passenger conceded. But we've studied the after-action reports. What remains of them anyway? Ava turned away, staring into the shadows between pillars. If this is about pulling me back into service, it's not. The driver interrupted firmly. That chapter is closed. She looked back sharply. Then what am I doing here? The two men exchanged a weighted glance. Because the passenger said, what you did tonight woke something that was supposed to stay dormant. He reached inside his jacket and produced a tablet, tapping the screen before extending it toward her. Video footage. Grainy. Security camera perspective. Her. The instant she moved. The instant the gun discharged. The instant she brought the man down. Beneath the clip were comments, internal designations, names she hadn't encountered in years. Units, programs, watchful eyes. Ava returned the tablet. So, what happens now? Now, the driver said, we determine whether you're a vulnerability or an opportunity. She laughed again, colder this time. That's not your decision to make. No, he agreed. But someone will make it. They drove her home afterward. No restraints, no ultimatums. Which somehow felt worse. Ava didn't sleep. Every time her eyes closed, she saw the desert, the dust. The night, her squad never returned. Morning arrived too quickly. By the time she returned to the hospital,